I've owned three Model Ys, the 2021 Long Range, 2022 Performance, and now the 2026 Juniper All-Wheel Drive Premium. When I tell you there are things I wish I knew before buying a Model Y, I'm not talking from one purchase. I'm talking from three of them, across multiple generations with real miles and real money on the line each time. So here are the 12 things I wish I knew before buying a Tesla. You go to Tesla's website, you see a number, and you think that's what you're paying. It's not. The base Model Y starts at a certain price, but that assumes you're fine with the base paint and the base everything else. Want a different color? That's extra. Different wheels? Extra. Different color interior? Extra. The destination fee alone is $1,390 before you've added a single thing. By the time you've configured the car the way you actually want it, you could easily be several $1,000s above what you saw on the landing page. And then there's the registration. A lot of states now charge EVs an annual flat fee on top of normal registration, sometimes $200 to $300 a year, and is framed as a gas tax equivalent since you're not paying it at the pump. The logic is that you're still using roads, so you should contribute to road funding like gas car drivers do. I get the argument, but the math doesn't always hold up. Those flat fees can equate to what someone driving 30 to 40,000 miles a year in a gas car would pay in fuel taxes, which is way more than most people actually drive. It varies a lot by state, so look up your state specifically before you finalize your budget. Go into this purchase knowing the real number, not the one Tesla puts at the top of the page. The 2026 Model Y Long Range All-Wheel Drive, or the All-Wheel Drive Premium, has an EPA estimated range of 327 miles. The number is true, but it's also a best-case scenario. Mild weather, moderate speeds, fully charged to 100%. And that's not how most people drive, and it's not how Tesla recommends you use a car day to day. Tesla advises charging to 80% for daily use to protect the long-term battery health. On my car, 80% works out to roughly 262 miles. That's your actual daily number, not 327. Now let's talk about what eats into that 262. Highway driving is the biggest one that people underestimate. Faster you go, the more energy you use, and it's not linear. It's sort of exponential. At 60 to 65 miles per hour, you're reasonably close to the EPA estimates. At 80 miles per hour, which is how a lot of people drive on the highway, you can lose 15 to 20% of efficiency just from speed alone. I've done highway stretches where I was burning through range noticeably faster than the car's projected estimates, and it catches you off guard the first few times. Cold weather is another one. If you live somewhere that gets genuinely cold winters, and I'm not talking about 45 degrees, I'm talking real cold sub-freezing temperatures, expect to lose another 10 to 15% on top of whatever you're already working with. The battery itself performs less efficiently in the cold, and heating the cabin takes real energy. There's no combustion engine generating waste heat for free like a gas car does. Your car is spending battery to warm you up. On a cold winter morning, a 262-mile car can realistically feel like a 210-mile car before you've even left the neighborhood. Here's the thing though, none of this is actually a problem for most people. Think about your real daily driving. The average American spends somewhere around 40 miles a day. Even in cold weather, and even at highway speeds, and even at 80% charge, you have more than enough range for a normal day. The difference between a Tesla and a gas car is that you plug in your Tesla at home every night and you wake up to a full charge. You're not filling up once a week, you're topping it up every night. And that changes the math completely. Where range actually starts to matter is on road trips, and I'll cover that separately. But for day-to-day driving, commuting, errands, school runs, and whatever your life looks like, 262 miles, which is at 80%, is plenty. Just go in knowing that the daily number is not 327 unless you charge to 100% every day. If you're buying a Tesla and you haven't thought through your home charging setup yet, do it now before delivery. There are basically three options. A standard 120 volt outlet, the kind you already have in your garage, and it'll charge your car up at around 3 miles of range per hour charged. It's usable if your daily commute is short and you plug in every night without fail, but it's the slowest option by a significant margin. A 240 volt outlet, specifically like a NEMO 1450, the one that's like a dryer plug, gets you around 30 miles of range per hour charged. This is a valid option for a lot of people. Now a Tesla wall connector gets you up to 44 24 miles of range per hour and is the cleanest and most seamless setup. Here's what I want you to know about the installation. Electricians have caught on to the EV boom, and they'll quote you accordingly. I got quotes ranging from around $500 to over $2,000 for the same job. So my recommendation is shop around, get at least 3 quotes minimum, and also look at your electricity rate plan. Most utility companies offer EV-specific time of use rates where you can charge at a significantly cheaper rate overnight. Set it up, schedule your charging window, and forget about it. It makes a real difference over time. I say this as someone who has owned all generations of Teslas back to back. The 2021 long range was a solid car, the 2022 performance was fast and fun, but the 2026 Juniper is a different level of refinement, and the changes aren't just cosmetic. Tesla redesigned the suspension geometry on the Juniper, new front and rear subframe mounting, revised damper tuning, and a rear-engineered rear suspension setup that meaningfully changes how the car absorbs road imperfections. The result is a ride that is noticeably more composed and controlled than what earlier Model Ys delivered. The interior is quieter too, with better acoustic insulation throughout the cabin, and the materials feel more intentional. The whole car feels more put together. If you drove a pre-refresh Model Y a few years ago and the ride quality was too firm, or the interior felt a little plasticky, or the car just didn't feel premium enough for the price, I genuinely think you owe it to yourself to drive the Juniper before writing it off. It addresses a lot of the criticisms that were fair at the time. This is the version of the car that Tesla probably always wanted to build. If you're enjoying this video so far, drop a like and hit that subscribe button. It really helps support the channel, and I appreciate it more than you know. Spend any time on Tesla forums and you'll find passionate threads about how harsh the Model Y rides, how it beats you up on rough roads, how people were ordering smaller wheels and researching coilover kits before they even took delivery. I read those same threads before I bought my first one, and here's a context that almost never gets mentioned. Most of the criticism was written about the 2020 to 2023 Model Ys. People write reviews once, it gets upvoted, it lives on the internet forever, and now someone buying a 2026 Juniper is reading 5-year-old complaints and thinking that's what they're walking into. It's simply not. But here's what never gets said enough. Even the pre-refresh Model Y was never as bad as the internet made it out to be. I drove my 2022 Performance as a daily driver for years. It was not a punishment. The performance on the 21-inch wheels, sure, you feel more of the road, but that's just physics. Wider, lower profile tires on a stiffer setup will always transmit more. But was it undrivable? No, I wouldn't say so. The complaints online have always been disproportionate to the actual experience of sitting in the car and driving it. Part of what happens in forums is amplification. Someone has a genuinely bad experience. Maybe they hit a particularly rough stretch of road. Maybe they came from a cushy luxury sedan and the comparison wasn't fair. They post about it. It gets traction. Other people pile on with their own minor complaints, and suddenly it reads like a consensus. People who buy the car and have zero issues aren't posting about it. Satisfied owners don't ride those forum threads. So the feedback pool gets skewed toward the negative, and that skew just compounds over time, and the post gets cited and reshared. I've put real miles on 3 of these cars across different generations, and none of them rode badly. I will say though that the 2026 rides exceptionally well for its segments, hands down. There is a noticeable improvement for sure, and I love that. But will it be on the level of an air suspension? Simply no, because it's on shocks, and you can only make it better so much. If ride quality is a thing making you hesitate, drive the Juniper. 30 minutes behind the wheel is worth more than 3 hours of reading opinions from people who may not have touched this car at all. There is a narrative online, and it's been around for years, that EVs are ticking time bombs. The battery is going to die and you'll be hit with a massive replacement bill that the long-term costs are secretly worse than a gas car. I want to address this directly because it's not accurate. In the time I've owned 3 Teslas, my maintenance has consisted of tire rotations, wiper fluid, and air filters. That's essentially it, and that's true for the vast majority of EV owners. No oil changes, no transmission fluid, no spark plugs, no belts, no exhaust work. The brake pads last an unusually long time because of regenerative braking, and it does most of the slowing for you. The battery degradation that does happen is gradual and levels off after the first couple years. I've seen high mileage Teslas with well-preserved batteries. Take care of it, don't charge to 100% every day unless you need to, and this car will hold up. At the start of 2026, Tesla removed autopilot as a standard feature. So if you're buying a new Model Y right now, you're not getting autopilot included anymore. We're getting a standard traffic-aware cruise control, which just simply maintains your speed and following distance on the highway. But lane keeping, automatic lane centering, and navigate on autopilot features that people are used to now require full self-driving. Now I will say, FSD has genuinely improved. The current version handles a lot of real-world driving situations impressively well, and it keeps getting better with every update. But it is a paid upgrade. It's a monthly subscription of $99 a month. My honest advice is don't buy it on day one. Get in the car, drive it. If you have a free trial, try it out and figure out how you actually use it, and then decide if FSD is something your driving patterns would genuinely benefit from. The subscription option exists specifically so you can try it without fully committing. Use it, test it out, and if you enjoy driving, like actually enjoy driving, you may find you don't miss FSD at all. Before I owned a Tesla, I thought road trips in the EV sounded like a logistical headache. They're not. The navigation system plans your charging automatically. It tells you where to stop, how long to charge, and what % you'll arrive at. The supercharging network is enormous and it keeps growing. The chargers are fast, which can add around 200 miles in roughly 15 minutes depending on conditions. You plug in, grab food, use a bathroom, and you're back on the road. The car on the highway with FSD engaged makes long drives significantly less fatiguing. I've done road trips in my Teslas and the experience has gotten better each time. Don't let charging anxiety talk you out of this car for road trip use. Because Teslas have no front grille, the entire bumper and hood are completely exposed to whatever the road throws at them. Rock chips, bugs, road debris, it all hits the paint directly with nothing to deflect it. Paint protection film on the front end is something I highly recommend before taking a single highway mile. I've done PPF myself on 3 of my Model Ys and saved thousands of dollars compared to what shops were quoting me. It takes patience and proper prep, but it's genuinely doable as a DIY project, and the result is essentially invincible armor on the most vulnerable parts of your car. If you wait, you're laminating that damage that's already there, so do it early. The kits I use and trust are linked in the description below. Now after PPF, ceramic coating is the next thing that I do. It makes washing the car dramatically easier. It protects against UV damage and water spots and keeps the paint looking deep and clean for years. I have a full step-by-step video on ceramic coating linked below. Watch it before you touch your car because prep and application are everything. Now for accessories, and this is important, I want you to watch my accessories video before you buy anything for this car. I've tested more Tesla accessories than I can count across my Teslas, and I've found the brands that actually hold up, the products that are genuinely worth the money, and the stuff that looks great in unboxing videos that falls apart in 3 months. That video is the most thorough Tesla accessory resource I've seen on YouTube, and I say this because I've lived it. I've linked that in the description below. Watch it first before you buy a single accessory. New owners are always caught off guard by how much the app actually does. You can preheat or pre-cool the cabin before you leave the house. You can check your charge level, lock and unlock it, locate your car, vent the windows, and get notified if someone walks up to the car while it's parked with Sentry Mode on. Sentry Mode, which uses the car's cameras to record activity around the car when it's parked, is something I recommend you turn on immediately. A lot of people have had it capture hit and run scenarios in parking lots and save them thousands of dollars. Enable it and set it not to record while you're at home to have it preserve some battery. Between the app and Sentry Mode, you have more visibility into what's happening with your car than any other vehicle I've ever owned. I know this sounds counterintuitive. White interior in your car that you use every day sounds like a nightmare, but it's not. Tesla's vegan leather holds up surprisingly well, and I actually made a video showing you exactly how I clean it. Nothing exotic, no special chemicals, it comes out looking brand new every time. If you're debating between the black and white interior and you're leaning towards the white, I recommend it. It makes the cabin feel more open and modern, and the cleaning process is simpler than what most people assume. The video I mentioned is linked in the description below so you see exactly what I use and how I do it. The car payment is a number you plan for, but there are expenses that people often forget. Insurance on a Tesla can run higher than a comparable gas car because insurance companies factor in part availability into the rates. This is not the case for everyone, so definitely shop around and get multiple insurance quotes. EV registration in a lot of states can be expensive. Some states charge $200 to $300 a year for tag renewal. And then there are the ongoing subscription costs. Tesla's premium connectivity, which unlocks certain features, runs at about $10 a month or or $100 a year. FSD as a subscription is $99 a month if you go that route. None of these are deal breakers, but they're real numbers that should be in your budget from day one, and add them up before you buy, not after. 3 Model Ys, several years, a lot of time and money spent figuring it out. If you're upgrading your Model Y or purchasing one for the first time, I hope this video helped you out. Everything I mentioned is linked below in the description. Make sure you hit that like button, subscribe to my channel, and leave a comment down below letting me know your thoughts on the Model Y. Thank you all for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.